So what would Lucy and Amy, how would they describe you? And would they have different descriptions of you?
Yeah, they do. I mean, even last night, Amy wrote me a little note saying, you are a shining star, mummy,"
Oh,
which was lovely. And Lucy will always talk about physical appearance. So, mummy looks beautiful. Mummy looks very pretty today. So she'll be like that. But yeah, I guess I'd like to think that they see me as kind and caring and firm and fair.
yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I can be manipulated. That'll be that open root chakra I
Yeah.
have. But generally, yeah, it's all about the love. And I like Lucy came to me this morning and she was having a worry, and yeah, so I was just teaching her to drop into her heart, to turn her mind off. And I think she likes all that stuff. I think that's what, sometimes she may even create that stuff so that she does get that attention, but it's cool with me.
They love, yeah, they want to really connect, especially yours are quite young, aren't they? How old are
Yeah,
they?
7 and 5.
Yes, they really want to connect on your level and like feel kind of understood by you. And it's when they start getting to kind of 10, 11, 12, it's like they start to kind of pull away. And like that's where mine are now, and they're kind of like just not wanting anything to do with, all of mummy's stuff.
Oh no, I mean Lucy's 7 and she's already, "Oh, you're so embarrassing, mum." So I thought that started later, but clearly it starts younger in kids these days. And I
Oh,
appreciate that, life, our childhoods are so very, very different to what they're dealing with. And it's so overwhelming. And God knows, what adults they're going to turn into because of all the tech and everything, all the things. There's so many things, isn't there?
there really is. Yeah. I find that I can find it really easy to spiral and just feel so much fear for them and sadness as well because of
Yeah.
what they're living through. And then there's another part of me that thinks, we live through a lot of crap. And yes, we're having to unravel it and we're having to heal a lot of it. But there is that kind of adage, isn't there, of it makes you stronger. It makes you more
Yeah.
resilient. And I think it makes you question more. I hope that it does.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I'm really like trying to impress on on both my girls is there's always a choice. And grown-ups aren't always right. That's another
Yes.
thing. We're not always right. I'm not always right. Daddy's not always right. The teachers aren't always right. So, I'm trying to teach and impress in them that I guess that is what this sounds it's going to be a very blanket statement, but it feels like we've lost that exploration,
Mm,
curiosity, that it's kind of left a lot of us adults. I just
yeah.
want to try and keep that curiosity alive in the children. And I just like even said this morning, said to Lucy, is like every day we're learning every single day, and we will never learn everything, and we just need to be aware of, it's a bit deep for a 7-year-old, but ultimately it's probably the message was meant for me as well, in the fact that we're all learning every day, and we're all unraveling stuff every single day, and it's okay, and it's being okay with that. I think
Yeah.
that being on that spiritual path as well, there's an element of, and I'm going to go down a completely different rabbit hole with spiritual teachers, and there's always feels like you need to get a certificate that
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm awakened. There you go. There's your certificate. She's
Yeah.
awake. And
Yeah.
I feel like this whole yeah, we've lost sight of, we're never going to know all the answers, and that's okay. I feel
Yeah,
like that.
I
Yeah.
I totally agree. A friend called me enlightened recently, and I almost threw up. I was like, "You can't, like, how, what?" I can't even receive that on any level. Just, but yeah, I
I guess
so
you are. I mean, you are. But you're enlightened enough to be learning every day. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like we like to label each other, don't we?
yeah, yeah. I
Sorry, I
think there
feel
was
like I've
also
said it.
probably also an element of she couldn't relate to like part of me or part of what I was talking about or something. There was probably also an element of that. But yeah, it was like, wow, that's nobody's ever said that to me before, and that's just weird. But yeah, I love what you said about kind of certificates because yes, I totally agree with that, that there's this feeling that you get there or you get somewhere tangible, and I think it's almost painful to discover that there is no there, that we are just constantly becoming and evolving and growing, and sometimes stopping still because that's part of being human, and sometimes just going round in the same loop.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talk about it in, so when I work with clients in the PR industry, like doing what I'm doing with publicity, and I always say to clients, "What's your Everest moment?" And I don't mean like the ultimate Everest moment. It's, there is always going to be lots and lots of Everest moments, but what's your immediate kind of
Yeah,
goal, or what's the first mountain you want to climb? And often it's like, I just want to get, doing one thing with a journalist is one mountain you need to climb, and then you get ready to do the next mountain and the next mountain. And I guess it's like, yeah, we like to make things neat as humans. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and
yeah,
that just, it's, I guess it's all, that beginning, middle, and an end. It's a spiral. It's not linear. It's, we go round and round and round and round and
yeah,
round, and we never really get to the end until we die.
yeah.
So, so listen to me doom and gloom today.
No, but I think it's you know I feel like in our society we are literally terrified of death, of any kind of death, and I think it's very unhealthy actually, that,
Yeah,
because not only are we scared of physical death, of you and I, our bodies giving up, but we're scared of all the little things, all the little deaths that happen every day, and
yeah.
we try and numb out and avoid them at all costs, and it's not, we have to go through the cycle. That's how life grows and evolves, all of it. And when you try and stop that or prevent it from happening, it causes all kinds of other problems. So yeah, I really think that that's an important point.
I think as well, this last year has taught, well, it has thrown death in people's faces. I mean, the fact they're tracking it every single day, it is,
Yeah,
yeah, it's the, there's a lot of people that are dealing with it very differently, and we are, and that's okay. I'm not like saying how people are dealing with it is wrong or anything, but the way I like to look at things, and I didn't understand this when my grandmother dealt with so when my grandfather passed, my grandmother was like, it's fine. She didn't cry. She was, his soul is gone. His soul has returned to where it needed to go to, and his body is being buried. And she was so pragmatic and so detached from it. At the time, I thought that was very young. I didn't understand why she was being like that, but now I understand that we should never attach ourselves to anything, because
yeah,
we don't own anything. We don't belong to anything. Children don't belong to us. They're individuals, and I feel like that society is kind of programming us or conditioning us to be to want to have things and
Yeah.
be driven by material needs and wants, and having a mortgage, and it's almost like we're being taught to wear these badges of honor that drag us down through the whole of our lives. It's like really bizarre, actually. And where did that come from?
Yeah. We're taught to accumulate and to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and never actually appreciate what we have right now. So we're never happy, we're never fulfilled as a result. And I can absolutely, even knowing that, even saying that to you, I can also say that happens to in my own life pretty much every week. It's like, oh, that thing that you really wanted to happen, you know whether it was like a really nice lunch that you had, or something more kind of significant, we're so quick to kind of go, oh yeah, that was great, and then we're on to the next thing, sometimes even before we've actually literally or emotionally digested that thing that we're going through, that kind of bar that we set ourselves. And
Yeah,
I notice that so much in my own life.
yeah, yeah. Just sort of sitting with that hugeness there.
Where does that leave us? Where do you feel that that leaves us?
Well, it makes me. I don't know. I feel more empowered knowing that, bizarrely, in that actually nothing really belongs to us. And, everybody's truth is different. Everyone's perception of a situation is different. And just being okay with that, I think for me, that was that has one of my biggest lessons, is really just accepting that, you know, this particular moment at this time is perfect, and that's how it's supposed to be. Um, and it's so difficult in this environment, I feel, to to drop into that at times.
Yeah. Yeah. I ironically, I feel that, you know, during all of the lockdowns, it was so much easier to kind of inhabit that space. Firstly, because we had the time, but also because there wasn't much else to do. And it was harder to avoid or numb out, because there's only so much Netflix you can watch.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I feel like that was a realization that a lot of people kind of started to come to and started to process. But then now we're kind of going back to normal, and whatever that means. And so we're kind of avoiding it all again, in all the busyness, of everyday life, of all the things that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, so this last weekend, I was invited to hang out with some of my mummy friends, so some of the children parents that we know from school. And I was so uh I wasn't anxious. I wasn't even anxious about it. I just didn't know if I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I didn't want to see them. And it wasn't because I didn't want to drink or whatever. It was more, which is, I feel like it's being bothered, and like I just want everything to be easy. And basically at the time when it was all being discussed, it was all very difficult, and we had to get ourselves there and had to figure out how to get home and all those sorts of things. And I mean, someone took control of it.
Yeah.
It made me realize that actually I don't need to be the one that manages everything anymore. I can
Yeah.
just allow. And if it's supposed to happen, then it will be easy, and if it's not, then it's not.
Yeah.
So it was really quite it was an eye opener for me, because normally I'm like, oh, I'll drive and I'll sort this out and I'll do that. And I just thought, actually, no, I'm just going to see what happens. And because I left the space for something to come through. Something
Yeah.
came through, and I think that's like, you're talking about it on a Saturday night, but it's the same with anything in this life. If you give it space to percolate and land as it's supposed to, and not get in the way.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, obviously needed to hear that as well. Because we
We're all
like to win here, don't we, us humans? We do, like, we try and we think, oh, we'll push that along and that will make it happen quicker. And then we end up either railroading it, or we shunt it right away.
yeah.
And we meddle. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The impatience. I was listening to a podcast this morning, actually, the Rob Bell podcast, and he was talking about this space that we're all in at the moment, both individually and collectively, in that kind of in betweeny, really itchy, uncomfortable, kind of queasy space of just like not really knowing what's happening, and not really knowing like what we even need to ask. Like, we don't know what's wrong, so we don't know what we need to ask, but also knowing that it's something that has to process in order to get to the good stuff that's going to come out of it. And I just love this because I feel like we've been in so much of that space, all of us, the last 15 months or so, and
Mm,
there is so much impatience to want to kind of get to the other side. But if you don't let it process, if you don't let it kind of fully kind of move through you, you know, it doesn't work, does it? It just, yeah,
no. I think, the first lockdown that we had, I feel like that was a real it was it felt like everyone was having a little bit of a holiday from life.
yeah,
And it felt like we were actually given permission to, like, globally just kind of stop.
yeah,
And I don't think that's ever happened, has it? In real, in certainly in our lifetime. And but I feel like the third lockdown, or it was well, I guess it was the Christmas lockdown, that had a really different feel to it. And it almost felt like we were all still trying to strive, because we had this technology and we've been through this before, so we must make it work. And
yeah,
it felt really forced, the whole situation, like we were forced into that situation. The kids were forced to stay at home. We were all still trying to do our jobs and there wasn't as much furloughing going on. It felt very restrictive.
yeah,
So I feel that the two, they were so very different. And I feel like, I'm certain, I don't know about you, but I feel like I only came out of the burnout from that situation probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
yeah. I think that, there's an unprecedented level of exhaustion, of fatigue, of burnout. I've definitely felt it. I'm feeling it right now, and I think there's been such a huge element of, like you said, just trying to keep things going and trying to keep things working and trying to keep on top of all of the extra emotional stuff, as well
Yeah,
as all the practical, all of the kind of things that we had to deal with. Yes, we didn't have to go anywhere,
yeah,
which was
absolutely.
a blessing. I'm now back to being a taxi service, which, like, I literally spent Saturday just going round and round and round and like did nothing else. So that was a blessing not to do that for a while, but all of the emotional weight, I just don't think that we could even honestly conceptualize how much of an impact that had, and that it's still processing.
Yeah. I mean, you think about, when you talk about grief, and we talked about death earlier, was, there are 7 stages of grief. Fairly sure we all went through that stuff, when, not least when we were indoors, but certainly over the, we will be over the next year, and I'm fairly sure that we'll still be trying to process all of this. And I think that's, like you were saying, we're in that liminal space where we're feeling really uncomfortable, we're just like trying to crawl out of our skin almost.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you know, and they're already talking about, not allowing people to come out on the 21st of June, and actually backtracking, which is what they did at Christmas. And I think, it's moving the goalposts is just that's the painful bit. I think it's like there's no end in sight.
Because of that
uh,
uncertainty, we can't, human beings are not well designed to live in uncertainty, especially for long periods of time. And there's also a huge element of just being completely disempowered, that you have no control over it.
yeah, but I feel like it's not. I think, you could liken it to the world wars, and there was probably an element of control. That's how we got through that last time. But you look at all the generations that followed, there was this, we tried to control everything.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we looked at things from a different lens and tried to come at it from a more, we have had to be more flexible. It has, we have become more resilient. And whilst we don't have bombs dropping on us, there's this whole threat of death that's hanging over our heads that, you know, it's a totally different conversation as to whether how much you believe of it or not. But I feel like that just having that hanging over us is, our nervous systems have got to be going crazy. And I think that's why a lot of people, probably got a real divide in the way that people are managing that situation. They're either, turning to alternative therapies like breath work and yoga and amazing creative drawings, or they are going through, turning to the old ways of dealing with stress, which is food and drink and,
Yeah.
all the synthetic things that have been created for us to,
Yeah.
as an outlet.
I think you touched on a really important point there, which I've been thinking about for a while, and nobody's, as far as I'm aware, nobody's really talked about. And that is that all of the stuff that we're kind of going through right now, it is like a war, except it's not overt. Like you said, there aren't bombs, dropping in the streets, or sirens wailing, or, soldiers stampeding through the streets. Not yet, with guns.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like, because it's all under the surface, as it were, because there's nothing overt, it's harder for our nervous systems, because there's something there, but it's not quite tangible. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like we are in fight or flight. There's no doubt about that. And yet
Mm-hmm.
I think we're also constantly questioning. There's something about our cognitive kind of response to what is or isn't or might not be happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. It's the whole, it's invisible.
Yeah.
And it's the not knowing. I mean, if it was if it was purple and we could all see it, we could avoid it. But because it's not purple and it's invisible, we just don't know. And I think that is the not knowing, and it's it's the risks that you're taking or not taking, or we
Yeah.
just we have no idea. So it's like, yeah, that I think that's why it's so difficult to kind of navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree.
um, the whole thing. And you could drive yourself a bit crazy if you, I mean, I'm sure people have.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. And there's been talk of the fact that so many people are accessing mental health services now. They're completely overloaded, and and yet it's still, that's still somehow not being addressed as an issue, because that is
Mm.
somehow seen as a lesser issue than anything else that may or may not be happening.
Yeah, it's no accident that I've literally this week, well, I'm working with two authors, one who's written a book about managing mental health, um, and her whole idea is to, so there's a statistic out there at the moment that 1 in 4 people have mental health issues, and she's not alone in this, is, you know, and there's another lady I spoke to only this morning who's written a book around um managing mental health through essential oils and, you know, complementary therapies. And basically there's books like this that are coming out, and they want to look after the 3 in the 4, not the one
Yeah,
with the mental health issue. It's the 3 who might have mental health issues but haven't got them at the moment. And, you know, there's a real, it's you know, like you were saying, it's just that there's no accident that those types of books are being written, have been written through lockdown, and are coming out now,
yeah,
kind of ready for, you know, for people to look at things differently. And, you know, the NHS, you know, fantastic, but equally, you know, people haven't been able to go and see them as much, as, you know, they haven't had the access. So, you know, complementary therapies are an amazing way to, and complementary holistic views of the world are, you know, there's no, I feel like that's where a lot of people are heading towards, or they feel like, you know, they can get access to
yeah,
books about this stuff. It's much more accessible perhaps than, you know, you couldn't get an appointment to go and see your GP because you felt sad, because everyone in the country's feeling sad. So it's
yeah, yeah.
it's sort of, yeah, I don't know
What
if I
do you,
made any sense then.
absolutely, you totally did. And I also want to ask you what you come back to when everything is just feeling overwhelming, or you're drowning in the uncertainty, or you're just, you know, kind of emotions are all over the place. What do you come back to ground you and to center you? And
So, I mean, being outside in the on the grass, of, you know, and that's one amazing thing that's come out of this whole situation. It's not all doom and gloom. And, you know, for me, I had the overwhelming urge to start growing vegetables. I've got a greenhouse, we've created a vegetable
wow,
patch. So, and it was great to do things like that with the kids, even though we have strawberries growing all over the garden now. But ultimately, it was, you know, it's a great opportunity to really ground and get, yeah, I mean, I'm a
yeah,
earth sign, and yeah, just being in the garden is definitely one thing. But equally, I mean, the other thing that I did is I invested in a hammock,
oh
and
my god,
it's like, it's just like being on holiday for like 20 minutes in the sunshine, and it just rejuvenates me. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel so, yeah, lit up from just being in the hammock, just sitting there and and meditating in the hammock. And it's just lovely, when the weather's not
yeah,
rubbish. But
yeah,
ultimately, that's my going within, journaling, being in the garden, all the things that we're all taught, I think. But yeah, my favorite thing is just to try and take some time out. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe this year I've not felt I've been as good at that. Um, so that is definitely something that I was really good at last year. And I
yeah,
feel like I got into not the hustle, but I got into the work mode when the kids went back to school. And then obviously come Christmas, it all changed again. So I feel like, yeah, I want to try and bring back some better self-care practices. And I'm actually working with, I know you've spoken to Kathy, I'm doing breath work regularly as well. And that seems to really help clear stuff too.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm totally into all of that sort of stuff, because it just feels like, I, you know, I don't think us women, us mums, And no disrespect to the helpful dads, because my husband hasn't been sitting on his bum by any means through this whole thing. I just do feel like the mothers do have taken quite a hit on all of this.
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I agree with you there that, I think there's been a fantastic, on the one hand, there's been a really fantastic opportunity for a lot of working dads to step up and be part of everything that goes on in the household and looking after the kids and getting them sorted and just connecting again, because I don't know about you, but my husband would literally be out the door, come home at night, be too tired, say hello, good night, go to bed, and that was kind of it was like that on repeat. And so on the one hand, yes, it was great. You got that opportunity to kind of reconnect as a proper family again and to learn about each other's roles and what that really involved. And on the
yeah,
other hand, it's like, well, we're trying to go back to how it was before, and suddenly it feels a lot more unfair because we've had that experience of how it could be more
yeah,
equal and
yeah,
valuing the role of the primary caregiver more because of everything that they're having to juggle.
yeah. No, I agree. It's sort of, I mean, my husband's still at home, and it's great that I mean, he's at home, and I put in place some, I did say to him, look, now the children are back at school, I need, can you help me with the school run? Because, it kind of naturally fell back to me doing it and
Yeah,
him working. And it's kind of, actually, no, this is an opportunity to really start to tweak how we do things as a family. And, it isn't just down to me to put the washing away. It isn't just down to me to stick the washing in the machine. Everybody is, I've been teaching the children how to do things. They, make their own lunches. And it's not just teaching them, it's allowing them to do that
yeah,
stuff as well, because I think there's an element of mums were very much in control of stuff. So
yeah,
there's an element of that as well. And, stepping, it's sort of, as we were talking about earlier, it's allowing the space and them to stand in their own power and be resilient as well as us, and
yeah,
and asking for help and not doing it all. And I
yeah,
know that's probably a big mistake I've made in the past, but it's been an amazing um experience in that respect, and so transformational. It was, yeah, it was just nice to kind of, and I also think, like, when we had difficulties with our partners, and I know this isn't the same for everybody, I there wasn't anywhere to go. You kind of had to front it. You had to, you had to get better at communicating. You had
yeah,
to better at talking to each other
yeah.
for
There's
it
only
to
so
work.
many times you can just storm up the stairs and
Yeah, you couldn't just get in the car and go for a coffee because everything was shut. So it's like, okay, what do I do now? I need to probably talk this through. So there
yeah.
was that.
It's been a massive upgrade. It really has for all of us. And as this, I just really don't think it's been acknowledged how exhausting such a huge upgrade is for all of us.
Mm.
And yeah, I think it's, if even just having that acknowledgement, I think, when you honor something, when you see something in yourself, you can relax a bit, can't you? You're not holding on so tightly. So even if we could acknowledge, oh yeah, actually I've been through a lot, maybe not as much as some, but that doesn't matter. I've still been through a lot, and therefore it's okay to feel exhausted. It's okay to
Yeah.
not feel like everything's back to normal, because it's not.
Well, I don't think it will ever be the same again, will it? And I think we've got to, there's almost like a narrative shift that needs to occur a little bit in the mainstream, in that we're not going to be back to normal. People aren't going to want to do all the things that they were doing before. People might want to take things quite slowly.
Yeah,
I know I do. God, I mean, I went out and I think I had a day out where I had a meeting in person and I popped to the shops, and the next day I just felt like I'd been hit by a bus. It was just like, wow, we used to do this all the time. It's kind of, oh, okay, but it's good. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I do class. I sound like a real sensitive little flower, but I feel like I'm quite an empath and an
Yeah,
HSP in persona. But I feel like I'm not. I won't be the only one that feels like that. And I think that we just need to be. There is the, like you say, there's probably this whole, I need to go back and do everything like I used to, and it's a real opportunity to look at things and, still leave the things that didn't work
yeah.
where they were. That we don't need to go back to old habits.
Absolutely. And I think I want to touch on that, what you said about being sensitive. I had the last episode with Kathy, which was all about sensitivity and really actually learning to understand that there's nothing wrong with us, that we're supposed to be sensitive beings, that, there is a scale, there is a spectrum of sensitivity, but also that the more that you actually honor and again acknowledge that about yourself, that you can really just embody it. You can step into it and you can say, yeah, this is me. I'm sensitive, and that means I have all of these superpowers that the person next to me might not have, and that's freaking amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, and it's okay to be unique and different and owning that as well.
I would love to know a couple of things in
Mm.
terms of where you are now, like personally, but also amongst this craziness that is 2020. Well, the decade probably of the 20s. Um, like if you could go back 10 years and give your younger self some a nugget of advice or just kind of nurturance, what would that be?
There's so many words of advice I would give my younger self. Where to begin? Um, I think it would have to be, just trust your judgment. It would have to be trust your inner knowing, and and allow, don't be so quick to leap in. Take your time, slow down. I was 100 miles an hour 10 years ago, and if I wasn't 100 miles an hour, I was drunk. So it's kind of, I was very, yeah, I was
Bizarre,
very, wasn't very balanced at all.
yeah,
So I feel like, we don't have to do it all right now. We can take our time. We have all the time in the world if we allow it. Mm.
I love that. And I think so many of us talking about that kind of fear of death again. I think so many of us maybe have that implicit fear of, well, if I don't do it now, it might never happen. Not necessarily that you're going to die tomorrow, but that that opportunity might be gone, for example. And so many of us cling to, well, I've got to rush and do it now, otherwise I'll lose my chance, that we kind of mess it up.
Yeah,
And actually just dropping, so I love what you said about, yeah, just dropping into that space of just real inner wisdom of knowing when something feels right, and that it takes the time it needs to take.
yeah. I think, whether it's a media opportunity or something else, if it's meant, it won't pass you by. It will come back around again.
Yeah,
And I genuinely believe that. It, the universe wouldn't send you something if you're not ready for it. And, you can push stuff away if you're not ready for it, but it will come back. And I've seen that happen so many times. it's just you have to keep reminding yourself that this amazing, this magical stuff happens. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
release attachment, massive, massive thing. So
Oh my goodness. I love that. If you had no, I'm going to rephrase that. If you were to put on your most kind of optimistic hat and yeah, I would love to know what where you see where you see humanity going in the
I would
next
love,
yeah,
yeah, it's an
in the next
interesting one.
50 years.
Next 50 years. I guess it depends on the timeline, doesn't it? But I feel I would love to see humanity bridge the gap and, you know, walk hand in hand, regardless of differences, together into the future and really step into love. I really do wish and hope and pray that we can get past all this competitiveness, differences, different points of view, because ultimately we're all the same. We're all a seed of light. And, you know, if you scale it right back to that, then, you know, there is no difference. We're all connected and, you know, connected by love if we allow it. And
Yeah.
I think for me, that's where I would love it to go. I would love my children to live in a world that was filled with love
Yeah.
and not fear.
Not fear. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't ever want them to be afraid. I just, you know, I do worry that is an unattainable future. But, you know, we have to if we teach our children that now, then they are the future, aren't they? Then, you know, they may decide to make better choices than perhaps some of us before them.
Yeah. Well, I will check in with you in 50 years. Let's see where we've got to. Oh my
That
god,
would be
it's a
nice, wouldn't
date.
it? Today, yeah, I'll hold you to that.
Put it in the calendar. Oh wow. Thank you so much, Sarah. Is there anything that you would love to add, just, like to anybody that follows you, or that may have just discovered you? What what would you love them to know about you? What one thing?
Um, I guess what you see is what you get. I'd love to be. I do want to present the most authentic version of myself at all times, and you know, I'm a massive believer in truth, and
Yeah,
I will always, you know, share truth as I see it. Um, and I guess that's it. I guess I would just, yeah, that's probably as simple as it is, really. Yeah, what you see is what you get, and I'm, you know, learning every single day. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I would add to that. I think that's, I mean, in my work, working with the press and with, you know, helping people to share their message, that's ultimately, I just want to make sure that I'm connecting people to love and, you know, really tuning into their own authentic truths as well. So
I think, and
we need more of that.
yeah, and honestly, I want to just reflect that back at you because you are doing such amazing work in a particularly tricky area of business. The media industry has is traditionally so,
Mm,
I want to say fake, but there's definitely an element of that. And to stand up and to say, I want to do this in the most authentic, soul aligned way, and help my clients do that as well, I think is such a beautiful thing. And we need so much more of it, especially given the way the
Mm.
media is moving at the moment. And
Yeah.
yeah, just want to thank you for that, honestly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So
Amazing.
where can we find you?
So I have a website. I'm www.indigosoulpr.com. I have a book, Connecting the Dots, on Amazon, and I can be found on Instagram and Facebook, all the places. And I have a radio show on Wellbeing Radio as well. So I'm fairly everywhere.
Um, I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been a joy to chat to you today and to get to
Thank you
know
for having me on.
you.